Welcome to Groups This Week. As a church, we exist to help all people become fully devoted followers of Jesus. We believe doing life together is a crucial part of that journey. During this time, we're going to unpack and dig deeper into the sermon we heard this past week. Let's dive in as we continue to grow in our faith, knowledge, and love of Jesus together. Well, hey everyone, welcome again to Groups Discussion this week. And thanks again, Cam, for joining us as we continue in this rhythm series. So this week we were looking at community, and this is such an important rhythm for us as followers of Jesus. You guys are in community groups right now. Come on, way to go. But why don't we just start with the question of why is it so essential for us as followers of Jesus to be in a regular rhythm of community?
Yeah, I think this is really, really important. And I think first and foremost, where my mind goes is that this isn't just like a Jesus follower thing, this is a human thing. I think that all of us were created to be in relationship. And you think of the fourfold relationship with ourselves, relationship with God, relationship with the world, but also relationship with others. And I think all the way back to Genesis when God was looking at Adam amongst all the other animals and he says, this is not good. Right? And so he creates for Adam a partner. We know the story, and Eve comes into existence. And it's not just about having a marriage relationship there. It's about the possibility and potential for more people to come, be fruitful and multiply, and therefore communities to be built. And I really do believe, like, at the core of God's vision for humanity, there is community, not just individuals, right? So I think this is a human thing. But I also do think that this does apply to our faith as well, right? And there's a couple different ways that this happens. I just think that as we follow Jesus, it's better when we do it together. Yeah. It's better when we do it together. There's this great quote, and it's from Dr. J. Hellerman. He says this: long-term interpersonal relationships are the crucible of genuine progress in the Christian life. People who stay grow, people who leave, they won't grow, right? And it's just talking about the fact that, like, our growth and our development and our following Jesus will only be advanced through doing that in the context of community. Now, you know, of course we could do that alone, but I don't think it's actually Jesus's vision for his people. And like one of the things that comes to mind is obviously Acts 2, chapter 42. You've likely heard it before if you've been in the church for more than 5 minutes, right? But it creates this vision of what the church became. They did life together. They ate together. They prayed together. They listened to teaching together. They shared their stuff together. And I really do believe this was Jesus's vision for us as followers, that we would do that in community. And there's a couple different things that come to mind. And Jesus chose 12 disciples, not just one disciple, right? And so he had a vision even from the very beginning, like this is going to be done in the context of a group of people together. And beyond that, Jesus didn't just come to create like a devotional series, you know, that we could just do one-on-one with the Lord. But he came to create a church, right? He
community.
Came to a community. And so I think that, like, when we're discussing why is this rhythm so important, it's that Jesus came to create a family, right? Came to create a community. And although we can do it alone, I don't think we're meant to. You know?
So much good stuff there, Cam. It's totally. Like, he came to create a family, and he's breaking down walls of division between Jews, Gentiles, and like race, and all these barriers that would segregate people for the purpose of bringing them together in unity.
For sure.
And I like how you're looking at, like, Acts chapter 2, I think gives us a precedent for practicing the one another's of Scripture. I think I heard that in the New Testament there's something like 49 different one another's, and it's like love one another, serve one another, honor one another, forgive one another. And how do we do that outside of relationship with people, right?
That's
so this is the faith that we live in, right?
For sure.
And I think if COVID taught us anything, it's that we're relational beings, as you've alluded to in Genesis 1, right? Like, we need relationships.
For sure.
It's just essential to who we are as human beings.
For sure.
Now, coming back to, like, our faith, what do you think are some of the potential dangers if we just try to follow Jesus on our own as individuals?
Yeah, no, that's really good. So I think the truth is we can follow Jesus alone. Like there is context in church history where like these desert fathers and stuff went in isolation and, you know, tried to pursue God and follow him and all those kind of things. I think it's possible, but as I said earlier, I don't think it's actually God's vision for it. There's a African proverb that says this, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together, right? And I think that's just true. It's like, yeah, you know, doing the Christian walk, whether that's your devotionals and all those kind of things, you can do it really fast solo.
Yeah.
Like you can squeeze it in and make it work with all that kind of stuff. But if you want to go far, you want to grow, I really do think you are called to do it together. Earlier you were talking about like, actually like with Jesus, you were saying like when he was in the desert, that was like actually like not a good thing for him. Do you want to like expand on that?
Yeah. Before we hit play on the video here, we were just kind of talking about when Jesus is in the desert, right? Like for 40 days after his baptism, it's when he's alone that, man, the devil shows up, tempts him, tries to tell him lies about who he is after the Father had just affirmed that this is Jesus, my son, with whom I'm well pleased. That's his identity. And then Satan comes against him saying, if you are the Son of God, you know, do this, right? And I think we're vulnerable when we're alone, right? Yeah. And yet when we're in community with others, we can be reminded of truth and God's promises, because we're prone to believing lies, right?
Absolutely. You know, let me just like share experientially today. So experientially today, I roll up at Sweet Talk Donuts in Port Moody. I hadn't got my devotionals in the morning, so I pulled up my Bible and did my devos, and it was great. Like it felt like God was speaking to me through some of the things I was reading in 1 Peter. But then I had an appointment, and my friend Alex was coming, and we sat down together, and we had coffee together, and we shared about our lives. You know, he just like spoke the word over me. And at the end he said, hey, can I pray for you? And he prayed for me. And it's like, we can follow Jesus solo in the coffee shop reading the word, but I'll tell you right now, that time with Alex, it was just so, there was something that was so genuine, so sincere, so the way I think it was meant to be. Like you can pray, but having someone pray for you, you can read the word, but having someone speak the word over you, there's something about that. And when you experience it, you'll know it's like, this is the way it was meant to be done, you know?
That's really good, Cam. And I think actually, this is like a really good moment to say in community groups, as much as discussion is important, praying for one another, so essential, right? So essential, and I think if we're not careful, it can just become about content without
Bible study,
leaning into, hey, how can we really pray for one another? And you make sure that's like a vital part of what you do in groups.
Absolutely.
So important.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because right now we're talking about the rhythm of community, and most of you who are watching this are in a community.
Totally.
You know, but I have heard, Lil Bird told me, that some of you watch this video alone and use it for your devotionals. And you know what, if you're doing that, that's totally good. But I think the call for maybe some of you who are watching right now is to go, hey, maybe if you don't have community, how can I get this rhythm of community in my life? Is there a group of one or two or three other people that you could invite into your life? And then for those of you who are in community, here's what I would say. And I've noticed something. You can be in a community, but not in community.
Like you're not engaged, or like, what do you mean? Like,
yeah, I think what I mean by that is that you can be in a community, but really it's just like surface level stuff. It's the weather, it's the score of the Canucks game the other day, it's that kind of thing. But I think there's something about Jesus' community that includes a few different elements. And I think one of them is depth. It's getting beyond the weather and beyond, the score of the football game and beyond, what I ate last night and really getting deep, getting under the surface of like those real topics in life. I think being in community means vulnerability, like mutual vulnerability. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm being honest about my my sin. I'm being honest about my insecurities. I'm being honest about the challenges that I'm facing and inviting people to help and support and come into my life, you know what I mean? And just being like real about those things. And so some of you are in a community, but you're not in community because you haven't allowed things to go deeper and more vulnerable. And the other thing I would say is regular. Like some of you show up to group like once every 4, and that's okay. Like we'd rather you have that than nothing. But there's something about that regular, like I'm doing life with you week in, week out, the highs, the lows, and just being deep and vulnerable and honest. And that's so much better, That's just so much better, right?
I'm so glad you're saying this, Cam. This is so important. And I think it just reminds me too of like, I did the Alpha Marriage course a number of years ago with Jenny, and they talk about 3 levels of communication. You've got like the transference of facts and information like you're talking about. And then level 2 is like sharing our opinions. It's a little more vulnerable. But level 3 is like sharing about our emotions and needs. It's like, that's what we want to see happen in community groups, right? It's like where we can take off the mask, be vulnerable, share with one another what's going on. And so maybe that's a question we'll even throw in the discussion guide of, hey, how's your community group doing in terms of the level of vulnerability that you're getting to as a group, and what maybe needs to shift for increased vulnerability to happen? So
absolutely. I think I'll end with this. Some of you are afraid to go to that 3rd level, and it's probably because of very real reasons. Like maybe you've been hurt in the past, maybe you've been let down by community in the past, maybe you have some like trauma that's just making this really hard to become deep and vulnerable and engage. But there's this quote from therapist Susie Hosh, and she says this: our deepest wounds come from relationships, but so does our deepest healing. And so I'm going to invite you to maybe start to step into this genuine and real community that Jesus offers and invites us into, maybe this week.
Awesome. Thanks, Cam, for being so pastoral with us and sharing your thoughts on community. Have a great conversation, guys.
I
hope you enjoyed the teaching today. If you're wanting to follow along with our community group's discussion guide with your group, you can head to cachurch.ca/media, where you can find the discussion guide. Not only are there questions there related to the sermon, but there's also prayer prompts that relate to the passage or the topic that we were talking about, and practices that you can, on an individual level or a group level, begin integrating into your life to not only bring this knowledge into your mind, but to begin living it out.